Okay, so now with that, I'm gonna kick it over to Jordan Knisley.
I am Jordan Knisley. I am a district magistrate in Southside Bethlehem in Northampton County. I was previously, and I have been for some time, an attorney, including I acted as the public defender, a public defender in Northampton County, as well as the public defender on our recovery court and mental health court teams in Northampton County. And now I have been elected to serve as a district magistrate. I think most of us are from Pennsylvania, but just so everybody understands, each county in Pennsylvania has Court of Common Pleas judges, or county judges. And then each county is broken down further into districts, and each district in each county has its own district magistrate, and I am one of them. And I am happy to be here.
I muted myself. Thank you, Jordan. And how about Rachel?
Hi, I am Rachel Leon. I am a council person serving on Bethlehem's City Council. Outside of that, I'm a student, I'm a mother. Local activist is really what I spend most of my time doing. I do a lot of work in the local housing market, trying to continue the push for affordable housing.
Thank you, Rachel. And Alexandra.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Hunt. I am Philadelphia based, and I recently ran for Congress challenging an incumbent from the left, inclusive of a harm reduction platform. And my background is in public health. I'm also a mental health advocate.
Thank you, Alexandra. And Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Vargo Heffner. I am a commissioner in Northampton County, currently serving as president. I'm also, by profession, a substance abuse and mental health counselor. I've been working in the substance abuse field for over 36 years in New Jersey, and I am also certified in Pennsylvania. Northampton County is considered a home rule county, which means that there are 60 plus counties in the state of Pennsylvania. Some of them have 3 commissioners, and they are the sole governing bodies of each county. We in Northampton County are set up more like the federal government. So we elect a county executive, we elect council people who serve as the legislature, and then we have judges as well. So we are, and we hold the mental health and the drug and alcohol services under our auspices and deal with the funding for those programs.
Thank you, Lori. And I do believe that was all of our panelists. So before we dive into the Q&A, just wanted to go over just a couple housekeeping things. Some of you joined after we had gotten started. So this is going to be just a really casual, I kind of like to think of it as like a fireside chat. Ask some questions, panelists are going to answer. And we are, if anybody in the audience has any questions that you want to ask any of the panelists, you can submit those in the chat and we will get them asked for you. And we really hope that this is a lively and interactive, event tonight. So don't be shy on putting your questions in. We do have the chat set that you can only chat with the co-host and hosts, just to keep things from not getting too crazy.
Hey, real quick, Jordan, before you do that, why don't you say a couple words about yourself?
Oh, I didn't introduce myself. Thought I did. Well, hi, everybody. Jordan Scott. I'm the regional field organizer for the Pennsylvania Harm Reduction Network. I also work in peer support. I'm a huge advocate for mental health, drug user rates, disability rights, and I just really want people to get more involved in their communities. And that is why I wanted us to have this event. And I hope we get to have more. And I hope people leave here today very inspired.
Yep, thanks. And I am Stephanie. I didn't really introduce myself. I am the operations and advocacy advisor for PARN. And yeah, I'm a person with lived experience from many different experiences. And I've been a social worker for almost a quarter century. So I'm really super excited to be here.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for the reminder. So with that, I kind of wanted to kick the questions off with just hearing from all of the panelists. And like I said, let's just keep this really just, casual and fun. For what you currently do, your current role, like what sparked your original desire? Whether it was to run for office or to get involved in organizing, advocacy, like what sparked that initial desire? And feel free, any of our panelists, to jump in.
I will start just because I think I am probably the exception to the rule. I just want to start off by making sure everybody understands that, yes, I have been elected to become a judge, and I am happily serving as a judge in Southside Bethlehem, but I never had any intentions of being any kind of politician. This was not in the game plan. I grew up in this community. I am born and raised in Southside Bethlehem my whole life. I only went away for college and law school, and I came back home to practice as soon as I graduated from law school. And I clerked for 2 years, and I was a public defender as well as working for a private practice for about 5 years. And being a public defender, I had often appeared in front of our district. Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. My lights are automatic, so I have to move every couple of minutes or they go off. So I had practiced in front of our magistrate here in Southside Bethlehem as I was kind of growing up and learning how to be an attorney. And she herself was a pillar in our community. She had been a district magistrate for over 30 years. She was the first Latina to serve in any judicial capacity in the state of Pennsylvania. And she was just a wonderful person, a wonderful judge, and a great mentor to me. And when she announced she was retiring, I realized that we were going to have a big void. And, we were all waiting to see who was going to run, and waiting and waiting and waiting. And a couple people, said that they were interested in running for this position, and whispers, were going around. But being a member in this community, I was waiting for a candidate who I was confident in, who could fill her shoes, because those were going to be big shoes to fill. And there was just nobody who had announced that they were even thinking about running for this position that I was happy with. Not in a political capacity, but being a member of this community, I wanted somebody who I thought was going to be a good fit here, who was going to serve this community. And I realized, sooner rather than later, it was going to have to be me. I was going to have to do it myself. And I wasn't anticipating making that career move, but I figured, I've lived here my entire life. I know this community. I care about this community. I am not happy with my candidates. And I can't let somebody who I don't think is, a good fit take that role. And I can't, magically make somebody better appear. So I figured, I'll run, but I won't win. And, somebody better will come out of the woodwork, and then that'll be that. And I ran, and I got all the way through to the end, and I had a great experience, and I got elected, and here I am. So I had no political ambitions or anything, but it came down to, I wasn't satisfied with my choices, and if not me, who? So here we are.
I love that. I will say Jordan gets very embarrassed when I address her as Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
She tells me to knock it off.
Mm-hmm.
How about everybody else? Like what sparked that original desire?
I want to go after Jordan because Your Honor, Jordan. Because actually our story is extremely similar. I grew up on the South Side. I've been here my whole life with the exception of about 12 years when I was in the military, and now I'm back. I had absolutely no desire to ever run for anything public facing, let alone political office. So when I got back here, one of my mother's friends, Olga Negron, who's been a pillar in the Hispanic community in Bethlehem forever, asked me if I wanted to serve on the library board. Totally excited for that because that's my jam, library stuff, I'm there for it. But then she had told me that she was going to be stepping off of council. She had served on council for 8 years. She thinks that city council should be term limited the way the mayor is. I agree with her. But it was her 8 years were done, and she wanted to step back. And she had told me that with her stepping back, there was going to be this void of the Southside experience, her perspective as a Hispanic woman in a community that is largely Hispanic. And while I don't tend to engage with a lot of politics or anything like that at the local level or even at the national level, other than doing my civic duty, growing up on the South Side, I've noticed how much pressure there is on the South Side to be a specific way or to develop in a certain way. And sometimes the people from the South Side get spoken over when we're trying to advocate for ourselves. And I didn't want that voice on council to be lost. So very hesitantly, I said, okay, I will run, more as a statement, because I was very sure I would not win. No one knew who I was. Everybody knows my parents, not me. There were 4 very qualified, wonderful people with way more name recognition than me. So I did what I thought was my responsibility, and I ran, and then I won, and now I'm here. So that's how I got here.
That's awesome. I love it. I love that, how that passion was sparked. And what about Ted, Alexandra? What was that moment for you?
Go ahead, Alexandra.
So similar beginning of never having any sort of political aspiration. I always planned on being a doctor, and I really centered my early career education path around medical school until I went and spent time on Pine Ridge Reservation. And I saw that medical school could maybe put a pause on some of their issues, but there was a systemic problem that really needed to be addressed. And so I started to look more into systemic issues, and I arrived at public health. So I started to go to school for public health, which was really a much better fit than purely a medical degree. And during that time, a pandemic happened. You might know about it. It's called COVID-19. And I was full-time working, part-time school, and I flexed my schedule at work. And I said, I need to be out in the community right now. This is unprecedented, and there's a lot of need to have people come together and fight for each other. So I was out in the community. I was at a food distribution site, and it was really, that was the moment that made me decide to run. I was looking at how long the line was for people in Philadelphia at one food distribution site on one day who were food insecure and who needed to stand in line, which was probably pretty shameful to do. And I thought, they're not coming to help us. And what would I do about this if I weren't afraid? Because I was afraid of running for office. I was afraid of putting my story out there, of being vulnerable, of pulling skeletons out of my closet. And I decided that's the direction I should go. So I looked into who could do something about this, who was the person sitting in a seat who could bring the most resources into Philadelphia and change things. And I found exactly that. I found my opponent, who was very comfortably sitting in a seat and not fighting for the changes that we needed, for the resources that we needed. And so I ran against him. I ran against a 42-year incumbent, Dwight Evans.
Thank you, Alexandra. Everybody's responses have been really, inspiring so far. How about you, Lori?
I absolutely back-ended into this. I went into my election office or my election booth one day, and I saw that there was all of one party running and there were not people represented on my side of, and I got annoyed. And so I wrote myself in, and my husband at the time, and I said, I signed us up for committee people. And he said, will you stop signing me up for stuff? And so I got a letter saying, we pulled your name out of the hat and you won. And I was like, oh, great. Now what do I do? So I did nothing for about 2 years till somebody called me from the party and said, you're supposed to come to these meetings. So that's how I got started. And I think it was during Barack Obama's second term and trying to get him reelected. So I got involved with that and learned how people organize, learned how people campaign, make calls, canvass. And I just sat there like a deer in the headlights listening to all this jargon. And then, so I got more actively involved and started to participate. And then one year they said, hey, we need somebody to run for county council and it's a district seat. You happen to live in the district. I said, well, I was thinking about doing school board because my daughter's in school here, but what is it? And they said, well, you know, it has, you know, governing powers and you manage the government, the budget for the government, local county, and a huge part of it is human services. I said, well, I guess it's a fit because I didn't train in political science. I didn't train in law. I didn't train in anything like that. But early in my career, one of my mentors, my beloved Nancy Brock, who was the head of the National Council on Alcoholism in North Jersey, she didn't just teach us how to do treatment. She taught us how to do activism, and she taught us how to get involved, talk to the legislators, get them involved in the projects. So I thought, well, this is a good fit. And I ran and I got shellacked. But somebody came up to me that night and said, you know, if you had run countywide, you would have won. So within 2 years, it was a countywide seat. I said, okay, I got a taste of this and I won. And so it's always a learning curve. You know, the other nice thing about the year that I won is that I think there was one woman sitting on county council. And so 2 of us won. So that made 3 on county, and it's 9-person council. So women are like grossly underrepresented. And the other thing I got involved in was my state and my local Democratic women's group, because they're the folks that do a lot of the grassroots and do a lot of the fundraising and back candidates. And so I figured, well, they helped me, I want to help pass it on. And so now I'm here, now I'm in it, and got involved in helping Jordan, got involved in helping Rachel, encourage other women to run because it's scary. And the men smile at you and they help you. No offense to the other gender that's present tonight, but you know, the women lift you up and they hold you up, you know, because we're scary. Good scary.
Thank you, Lori. And so Ted is the only person on our panel that's not an elected official, his role as a lobbyist it's important to how we pass laws and legislation and how we change things. So I felt it was important to also have that representation. So Ted, you know, even I know in your bio, you say that you're a 2nd-generation lobbyist, but why follow in those footsteps and not decide to go to school to be a doctor?
My story is I grew up steeped in politics, you know, my whole life. I grew up in Delaware County as a Democrat before it was fashionable to be a Democrat down there. And my dad actually came out of law school and ran for the House twice against his best friend in law school, who ended up beating him both times. And I spent most of my, Matt Ryan, the other guy, has a building named after him in Harrisburg. And my dad went on to, you know, practice law, and then he came to Harrisburg and became a lobbyist for another organization. But I spent most of my upbringing trying to get folks elected to various races. I saw the jobs, and I very much respect all of you for taking that leap and for doing what you do. And I've, you know, decided later on to make a career out of working with those folks and never having to run for office.
Smart guy.
I always figure I have more votes this way than if I only had one on my own. So
There you go. So I think with that, the one thing that was kind of rolling around in my mind as everybody was, you know, talking about what had sparked that initial desire was, why is civic engagement important? Why should people be active members of their community? You know, why should we care about who's running for office, what, you know, addendums are out there, what policies are being made? Like, why is civic engagement important?
let me jump in first and say all 4 of of the other panelists already answered that question in a way with their life experience. You know, you got to look and see who's running things, and if they're not satisfying you, you have to get involved to make things change.
I'll piggyback off of that and say, yeah, you don't just speak about it, be about it, act on it. And I think that it's appropriate to talk about harm reduction as reducing systemic harm against communities, against individuals. We usually center it around drug use and substance abuse, but the way that we can operate in our democracy is through harm reduction and through voting and through being involved in our communities and making sure that we're best uplifting the interests and voices of community members. So civic engagement is unbelievably important, because when we don't participate, we end up with some really scary people in power.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. Somebody once said to me, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And I think that's been true in the past few years more often than not. So if women aren't running to represent women's concerns, you know, if people of color aren't at the table, if recovering people aren't at the table, people with shared life experiences, people who have mental illness in their family, like those are the folks that need to be involved or very close to us in advisement. So I think the old guard of how much money you have and throwing a lot of, you know, candidates with deep wallets are gone. And I think it's more about grassroots campaigns and representation from different areas at this time.
And to me, personally, civic engagement doesn't necessarily mean anything political. So there's, and this is super cliche, but I love it, and it's, you know, cliche for a reason. There's a quote out there, and I'm sure we all know it. Some of us probably have it tattooed on us, for God's sake, but be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
It's that easy. It doesn't mean you have to be crazy like me or Rachel or Lori and just, you know, drop your life and decide you're going to run and, you know, put everything aside and be crazy for 6 months of your life. It can be, and it doesn't have to be political. You know, it doesn't have to be one of the hot topic issues. It's not necessarily because of abortion or, you know, women's rights or immigration or something. It can start with, you know, you and your front porch in your hometown. It doesn't have to be because of a political cause, but, you know, if you think your town is dirty and you want to pick up litter, you want to fundraise for a local park. You know, I know Rachel is super passionate about green spaces that we have in Bethlehem. It does not have to be, you know, an issue that the parties are always fighting about. You know, just preserving my town. That's important to me. Not because it's a political issue, but just because people from Bethlehem are very proud of the fact that they are from Bethlehem. So be proud of Bethlehem and do something to make Bethlehem proud. You know, you can start, if you're passionate about your religion and you like, you know, your church, and you start a group at church just to start a discussion. I mean, to me, that is being civically engaged. And just because you are doing something small does not mean you're doing something important.
Very, very well said. I think often we look at civic engagement as something that is all about politics and those hot button issues, but it really is just about caring about the place that we call our community, and wanting our communities to be healthy and wanting our community to be happy, and, you know, wanting our communities to have access to, you know, basic things that they need to live. That you said, you know, putting together a cleanup crew, a fundraiser for a local organization, you know, being a part, you know, even stuff as simple as going to your city council meetings or going to your county council meetings. You know, maybe you live in a neighborhood that has a lot of children and you want your city to put up a slow down sign on your street. You know, that is being an active member of your community, and it's a great example of civic engagement.
The best part of campaigning and the best part of governing at all is the folks who come to us to talk to us, with us. Because we can't sit up there like, I know everything. If constituents don't inform us about what's going on in their community or what are the concerns, we don't know. As well as the fact that there are so many great people doing so many different kinds of things. We get presentations all the time at economic development, at human services. I think I'm invited to go to a Miracle League event to celebrate however many years of the Miracle League. And those are the group that helps handicapped children play sports. And so I think that's, you know, I wouldn't know about it and I wouldn't know where it is if I didn't have this access. And if people didn't, or like recently there was somebody requesting to build a building. Well, a lot of people came in front of council to say, no, we don't want more warehouses. We don't want more traffic. So if I would encourage anybody who's listening to come to the meetings, to come and listen, to get to know us, to communicate with us. Because if you don't tell us, we won't know.
I want to agree with everything that Lori said. If you don't, civic engagement is so important, because if you're not speaking for yourself, someone else is going to speak for you, and they're not going to come with your life experiences, what you value, what you like. None of that is going to be present in the conversation. That's a lot how things kind of happen in South Bethlehem. People, since nobody was represented from South Bethlehem, the people of South Bethlehem were spoken for instead of people actively listening to what they wanted, and they got a lot of development that they weren't necessarily for. So civic engagement is so important because your voice matters, your life experience matters, and the people that are making the decisions are going to make decisions that are skewed in one direction or the other if they're not hearing from the people that live in the communities that they're serving.
That's a great point. So for, you know, people looking at their respective communities, like what are the ways that people can engage with their elected officials on all those different levels, whether you're talking about a school board or, you know, you're talking about somebody who's a representative or they're a senator and everything in between. You know, why would somebody come and engage with city council? You know, why would somebody come and engage with their congressperson? Because I know a lot of people feel like it doesn't matter. You know, yes, I can call my representative and say, hey, vote for this bill, but they're not going to actually do anything.
I would say that pre-COVID, we had people come to county council and just sit and watch the meetings. And they didn't come for any other reason except to observe. They didn't have their own agenda. They were just regular participants. And so since COVID, that's decreased a little bit. And probably people are zooming in more or watching it online and streaming rather than actually being visibly present. Usually people show up when there's an issue, but I really miss the days when people just showed up to be there and be present and pay attention. I know myself, I would get to the school board if something was being talked about in town or it was going to affect curriculum. And so that started to affect my family. So when it got closer to me, I made my presence known. I'd get our teachers tend to strike a lot here in my little burg. And so I'd go to support teachers because I felt strongly about that. So I think that's how it starts, but I would say don't hesitate to just go and learn and watch the process before you have an issue that you want to change, because learning the process helps you get access. We all have phone numbers, we all have emails, you could always access us that way, but show up in a meeting and see the process so you understand.
And I think a lot of people look at legislators and county officials and, you know, elected people as something other than actual people. And they, you know, once you go and sit and listen to them talk, or you go and sit in their office and spend, 20 minutes with them or something like that, you realize that they're just normal people that are, that got elected for the same reasons that all of you got elected, was to make things better for their communities. And, despite what you might hear, and there's not a lot of money in most elected official jobs. So, you can't really make that, so there, most legislators go into it with the objective of doing the right thing. So you just have to let them know what that is.
Absolutely. And apparently, Lori, you have already inspired somebody to start attending their county council meetings.
Are they in Northampton? I'll see you tomorrow.
They are in Northampton County.
Don't throw anything at me. Just listen.
So I wanted, we had a couple of questions coming into the chat. And so Tom currently serves on the County Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, and he would love some tips on how to get people to want to serve on the board, to want to participate.
At county level, anybody can send a letter of intent or desire. The county executive does the appointments in Northampton County. In other counties where there's only 3 commissioners, there may be a different process. But if you're interested on being on a board, especially there is a drug and alcohol board, I think there's some membership requirements for that. But send your resume or your vita and just apply. And usually most of those boards are pretty hungry for members because again, it's volunteerism. They're not paid. So most would be welcomed.
And so I would like, and we had another question, and this kind of ties into that. If everybody could just kind of more in-depthly really talk about like what does your individual role mean? You know, so like what exactly is it that a lobbyist does? You know, what really is a county council person doing? You know, what do our district judges do?
I can kick it off with council because I feel like city council is kind of low on the but at city council, we kind of operate with the administration, like the mayor, but also as a check on the administration. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're passing balanced budgets, so we're not going into deficits. But we also introduce ordinances, and the mayor helps or ensures that the ordinances are enactable ordinances. So what we do is make sure that we're responsible with our taxpayers' dollars, and we listen to the community and kind of hear what they want and what's important to them. And we pass ordinances in accordance with that.
Thank you.
Go.
County council is pretty similar to that, except that there's things that we can't do that city can. If you want me to fix a pothole somewhere in the county, go to your local municipality because we don't have a road crew, but we are responsible for fixing bridges and maintaining bridges. We provide most of the core county services. So we keep your courts open. We have mental health, drug and alcohol, aging, children and youth. We have a county nursing home in our county. If you need a license for something, if you need to pay your taxes, that's what we do. We don't have a police force. And that's the other thing. I think it's important to learn what each facet of local government does, because some people come to us like, I need you to do this. Well, that's a state issue, or I need you to do that. And it's a city issue. Like anybody who's going to come with some of the national topics, we're not going to vote on that because it has nothing to do with what we do. Just like Rachel said, we are the check and balance. So the county executive is not a member of council. He is separate and distinct. We allow him to speak and give reports. He presents us with the budget, and then we determine the actual finances, and we pass or we reject it. And the same thing, he can't enact laws. He can veto them, but we can override the veto. So we do a lot of leases. We do a lot. We've done a lot with farmland preservation in our county. We're pretty stellar in that area in Northampton County. So buying up land or giving, protecting the land so that we don't have warehouse proliferation. And then the other thing is that county council members, in addition to having their own distinct committees, and like we have a prison, so there's a jail advisory board, there's an economic development board, there's capital projects board, but we also serve as liaisons on other bodies within the county and the Lehigh Valley, so that there's representation, and we're on the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, but we don't have We don't control it. We're just members and observe. So we participate in things like that.
And as a district judge and magistrates are considered like the gatekeeper of the judicial and the court system in Pennsylvania. So like I said, every county is broken up into smaller districts, and then each district has one district magistrate or district judge. So your local district judge, wherever you are, is responsible for disposing of all of the summary citations. So every time you get a parking ticket that goes to warrant, you get an actual citation, or a speeding ticket, any kind of summary citation, whether it is traffic or non-traffic. So, you know, littering, city ordinance violations, our city has a small amount of marijuana city ordinance, noise violations, like I said, speeding, public drunkenness, everything, all of those smaller time crimes get disposed of with summary trials at your local magistrate. For more serious criminal matters, everywhere from disorderly conduct, you know, misdemeanors of the 3rd degree, all the way up to 1st degree murder, and everything in between has its preliminary hearing at your local magistrate. So a preliminary hearing is not your trial, but it is the first opportunity in which you have the ability to challenge the Commonwealth's or hear the Commonwealth's evidence against you, and your magistrate will decide whether or not there's enough evidence for the proceedings to proceed, and for the prosecution to proceed, and for it to get sent up to your county court. I also, and magistrates also, have a number of civil duties. We have civil claims, any kind of contract claims, as long as the disputed amount doesn't exceed $12,000. Anything $12,000 and less than $12,000 gets filed at your local magistrate. And lots of landlord-tenant matters. All evictions get filed at your local magistrate. So with regard to why people come to my office and how people engage with me, unfortunately, a lot of times they are here because they have to be here, and it's because they are in some form of trouble, whether it be criminal or civil or landlord tenant. So a lot of the time, you know, people who come here to engage with me in the court system in one form or another, they are not here of their own volition, unfortunately. And again, it's because they are, you know, usually in some form of trouble. And in some cases, that's because drugs and alcohol, or homelessness, or mental health issues, or whatever it might be. So I am the introduction to the court system. And when I meet people, you know, at their lowest low, it is not always the best, most enjoyable experience for them. I have also learned by way of what I do, just how overwhelming and nerve-wracking the judicial system and the judicial process can be to the average person. You know, there will be people who are charged with 1st-degree murder, who have been through the system dozens of times, and they walk in here like it's no big deal, cool as a cucumber. And then I have, you know, Lori Vargo Heffner, who got her first speeding ticket, who has never been charged with anything ever before, and she comes in here having a panic attack because she is just overwhelmed. People, unfortunately, you know,
I wish that were true.
Right? I wish that had actually happened, Lori. But, you know, upstanding citizens who have never been in trouble before, they don't know who the players are. They don't understand what their rights are. They don't understand how to do what they have to do. And it's a very intimidating process. So I do everything I can to make sure my door is always open. I have a physical location. I am here Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. When the court is open, I am here. And you know, people come because they have to, and I try to make sure that they understand the process and make sure that they are not fundamentally disadvantaged because they are overwhelmed or don't understand what's going on. I do my very best to make sure that they understand what's going on so they can make informed decisions and choices going forward. And other times I have come to learn. You know, people see the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania sign on my door and just realize that I am a governmental agency, and they think they can pay their taxes here. They think that I give driver's licenses. They think I give hunting licenses. They think I can contact the FBI at a drop of a hat. It's very hard to distinguish what we all do. You know, as somebody who was and is a lawyer and was forced to become somewhat of a political animal to run for my now position, I still don't totally understand what it is that Lori does versus what it is that Rachel does versus what it does, you know, what a congresswoman or a congressman or a senator does do and what they're responsible for. And all of our jobs are very, I don't want to say overwhelming, but it's hard to understand, I think, what each one of us does and which one of us is actually capable of doing until you do the research. So if anybody has any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to let us know.
Because a lot of people, when I started, said, oh, so you're like borough council? City count, like they didn't understand that the county was a functioning government. You know, again, unless you have to be there and you need it or something drives you to there, if we're working well, we're in the background and you don't need to know about us. Like it's like electricity in a way. But and I don't know if Rachel had this experience. I know Jordan had the experience of being able to go to judge school and learn exactly what the rules were. But I don't know about Rachel, but for me, county council was kind of like, okay, here you go, you're elected, and you
Figure it out.
Yeah, you kind of figure it out as you go, and somebody maybe hands you, like, I didn't know the difference between a resolution and an ordinance, and it took me a while to figure out the process. And you know, Robert's Rules of Order, it for us is kind of your best friend. But you know, and understanding that if you go, I think the other thing from
She has it right in front of her.
who.
Look at Rachel's screen.
There you go. I think also when people come to county, they get 5 minutes to speak. I think you have public comment too. Everybody's allowed to come and make a public comment. But if you come and you say, I want to know why you aren't saying anything about that, we're not really allowed to engage with you on those matters. We give you the right to come and phrase the question to us, and we're not going to banter. I'm not, as president, going to allow anybody to attack anybody who's coming for public comment. That's your time to be heard. That's your time to inform us and lay out your concerns to us. So I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I think, again, those opportunities are there for people. But I see people come and, like, there's somebody who comes pretty faithfully. There's an issue in the northern tier of the county that's upsetting. There's sludge. We have issues with sludge and with some of the waste management companies. So they come pretty regularly, at least once a month, say, well, here's some new information, or here's a packet, or here's just something I want to share with you. And again, I ask the question, and by the 5th time of them coming and say, I know you can't answer, but I just want you to know that this is what's happening and keep you informed. And I appreciate it, because their fidelity to making sure that we hear about it and we know about it is helpful to me.
Absolutely. We have a question for Jordan. Do you know if Pennsylvania allows for privately funded district attorney's office?
I am not quite clear on the question. Who asked privately funded district attorney's office? I believe, Lori, that is one of your responsibilities as county council. The county council, I believe, funds each county's district attorney's office in their budget, correct?
We partially fund it, and the state, I believe, funds the rest. I think it's a shared, I'm not sure. We give him his budget, but I think there's some part of the salary that comes from the state as well.
I believe district attorney's offices, like Lori said, are both county and state funded. I don't believe there's any kind of private funding for any district attorney's offices, at least not in our part of the state.
And so I would love to know from everybody, what is something that you know now that you wish you knew then?
Everything. Can I say everything?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
I remember, so like Rachel said, we were in similar circumstances. We both decided to run because we felt compelled to do so and our hearts were in the right places. And neither one of us, I don't think, really thought we were going to win. And I was so overwhelmed, and just thank goodness for Rachel, because I had like a buddy who felt the same way I did, who was in the same boat I was, even though we were running for totally different offices and, you know, we have different districts and, you know, we were kind of doing the same thing. And I had no idea what I was doing. And that's where Lori came in. Thank God for Lori. Lori kind of mama beared me and taught me everything I needed to know. The whole process of running for any kind of office, even if it is the smallest, tiniest of local offices, is very overwhelming. And it's unfortunate because it is scary. Like Alexandra said, how scary it is to run for office. I was terrified. When you put yourself out there, you make yourself vulnerable, you make yourself, you know, a public figure, you open yourself up to all different kinds of criticism to your face on social media. People have opinions about everything and they want to tell you to your face. And it can be a horrifying experience. But what I didn't know going into it is that a lot of people who were running for local offices are not political animals, and they were in the exact same boat I was. And I got to meet people like Rachel and form these wonderful relationships and go through this overwhelming process, but with friends and with, you know, people who have become good friends and good acquaintances, and succeed and now be able to enact that change that we talked about. And I would never regret the experience. Even going through what I went through, I would never regret having run, even if I had lost, because of all of the relationships that I was able to form and make. And even door knocking, you know, if you run for any kind of office, there's a good chance you have to, you know, in the rain, in the snow, in the 100-degree weather, you know, either jump in a car, jump out of a car, jump in a car, or if you have a walkable district like I do, walk up these hills, knock on every single door. People scream at you for being on their porches. They think you're the mailman. They want to know why their Amazon package is late. They don't know who you are. They think you're trying to sell something and they don't want anything to do with you. And yeah, that happens. But then you also knock on a door and you have a 35-minute conversation with a lovely, you know, older gentleman or woman, and they just want to know who you are and what you're about, and they wish you well. And you just get to meet so many different kinds of people. And my takeaway from my campaign experience was just honestly how genuinely good people are. I didn't really have any negative experiences, which I think is kind of unheard of. Sorry. So I wish I had known going into this that I could do it and that it would be overwhelming and it would be exhausting, but no matter what, it was going to be worth it, because it was. And like I said, the process can be overwhelming and nerve-wracking, and, you know, I wasn't sleeping, and I think we were all in the same boat there too. But regardless of the outcome, I wouldn't regret it. So I wish I had known that, so I would have calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
I can attest that Jordan was a little high strung.
Yep.
She ran a very hard race. That was a very hard race. And to that, I wish I had known, like you, I wish I had known how important the relationships I made along the way were going to be. I think there's plenty of pictures of the three of us on election night as the results came in and we found out that we'd won. I wish I had known that going from such an introverted introvert to a public facing person was going to require me to make key connections with people that understood the situation I was in because of their own experiences, because there's things that you need to turn somewhere to talk to someone about this, but so few people have those specific experiences of what it's like to walk a path like that, to go from such a quiet, private person to bam, public facing person where you can be in mom mode, walking down the greenway, just playing with your son, and someone's in your face about trash or chickens or whatever, and trying to learn how to manage going from I'm a quiet private person right now to I am a public servant, and I want to be accessible and available. And I wish I had known how important my own personal boundaries and boundaries and things that keep me, my mental health safe, how important those things were, and how crucial it is to kind of solidify those things before you get too into it. And I wish I had known what the weight of decisions felt like before. I thought I was prepared for it. I was in the military. I went through Operation Enduring Freedom. I figured I was one tough cookie. But when I go to bed at night, I go to bed with the realization that the decisions I make affect the lives of 75,000 people. And I wish I had known what that weight felt like before, because maybe I would have done a little bit of strength training to build up to it.
Absolutely. And Alexandra, I know unfortunately you didn't win your election, but I also know you haven't let that stop you, and you didn't just, go home and go to bed. I know you're still really actively engaged in your community. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I actually was having a conversation with someone today, and they were like, it really means so much to see you back out here so quickly, because usually with politicians, and I still don't enjoy being called a politician, you only see them around their election time. And so I'm not out in the community around my election time. My election time has passed. And it means a lot for folks to see that, and to see that the care I have for Philadelphia and the constituents of Philadelphia is very authentic and real. As for what I wish I had known, I mean, running for office is unbelievably hard. Running against an incumbent is impossible. I think something like 95 to maybe 97% of incumbents win. And we talk about going against the machine, and that's pretty common rhetoric in conversations, especially when you're on the left, running from the left. But feeling what that feels like to go against the machine is very hurtful and personal. And I don't think there's anything you could do to prepare yourself for it. And then also keep going, because, for example, I had an abortion when I was 18. I've shared that publicly. And as SCOTUS overturned Roe v. Wade, that became a topic that was put on Fox News. And that was actually put on Fox News the day before Easter. And so on Easter Day, I no longer felt comfortable going into the Catholic Church I'd planned to go into that day. And no person, no politician who claims to be pro-choice stepped forward to say, you shouldn't have had that smear. How are you doing? Are you okay? They hung me out there to dry because I was going against the machine. So I think it wouldn't have changed how I ran, but just I would have known how deeply the machine will not care about the human in you, and that you're going to have to fight through that.
I think it's really powerful for me, at least sitting here tonight, as I look at you and I look at Jordan and I look at Rachel, and also Lori, but just people who, despite being told that this isn't likely, or this is going to be really hard, or you're probably going to fail at it, still being that willing and that invested to be a part of a bigger thing in your community, even if it was win or lose, like you said, and many of you have referenced it, regardless of whether or not you had actually been successful in running for office, it still wouldn't have changed how you interacted with your community. And I think that's a really important piece. And I think that's a very empowering piece for people who are so used to the machine as it has always been. And it becomes very easy for people to get disenfranchised and get frustrated and believe that the machine will always be the machine and nothing will ever change, right? It seems like this big, huge, overwhelming thing. But we are seeing the change. I look at Rachel as, I just moved from the Lehigh Valley area. So I looked at Rachel as this like really fresh breath of air on city council in my community. And I was so excited to see these new just people, right? Not career politicians, just somebody who decided, you know what, I'm not happy with my community and I want to be a part of the change, because it's really easy to talk about the problems. However, it's a lot harder to be an active part of the solution. So I just personally found that really empowering. And I think a lot of people also are. And Ted, I, also would love, to hear your thoughts, because, 30 plus years of like working in the belly of the beast, being behind the scenes, like.
Yeah, I think, I thought I knew things when, and I will tell you, I have a degree in political science, but 80% of what I know, I didn't get from that 4 years at Penn State. I learned a lot of it when I went in. I wrote some papers in first person when I was, at Penn State, and and a lot of the things, the experiences that these folks have been talking about is something I really didn't know as intently as I do now. I've gotten to be friends with a lot of legislators over time. Senator Boscola is one of my best friends in Harrisburg, and has been since her first term in the House. But you see them as real people, and I challenge people in the press and other folks on social media now that blast legislators as being lazy and not know, and thinking that they don't work hard. They should just follow them around for a few days and just see just what happens. And the examples that they've been talking about, people stop you in church, they stop you at the grocery store, or just walking down the street, and they drag you in the house while they're knocking on doors to try to get reelected, and yell about everything else. The other thing, I guess I didn't know too, growing up in, more or less, white collar neighborhood in Havertown, when I got to work with some of the other groups that I've worked with over the years. I mean, the conversations that I have with folks who are 70 years old in the VFW are certainly different from those who are when I'm talking with my optometry clients, or landscape architects, or some other folks that we work with, and we have horse breeders and all kinds of different clients. And it's very much like working at the UN. I'm sort of the translator between all these people. I have to learn all these languages and acronyms, and then I also have to learn the legislative language so that I can make everybody understand each other, and then they can come to some type of agreement.
So, and that leads me into also some questions that we got in the chat as well, but your role, especially Ted, right? So I'm pretty sure that all of our attendees are aware of the two pieces of legislation that PARN has been trying to support, our fentanyl test strip bill and the syringe service program bill. So, as a lobbyist, and we have a lot of people who ask a lot of questions, who don't know how that legislative process works. They really don't understand how bills and policies are actually passed, and how much of that is constituents interacting directly with their elected officials. And also, how do bills align with the state budget? And, how would somebody who is very new to this, effectively interact with their elected official around legislation?
Well, I think bringing your own personal stories and your experiences is the first thing to do. That's what you have. That's what your currency is. Every single person who I think of all the people who sponsored the bills that we're supporting, they have their own life experiences. They've lost family members, or they've somehow been involved with folks that have been down the road, and so they get it, and it's incumbent on them, as well as those of us who are supporting these pieces of legislation, to bring all those experiences to the rest of the folks who haven't had that experience yet. The General Assembly is a very diverse organization. There's people from Northeast Philly, and there's people from Northeastern PA, and in the T, Carville used to call the Alabama part of Pennsylvania. That you have to make them all come to understand what they're doing. People in the rural areas do know these issues that we've been trying to talk about. They've been dealing with them with very little funding, and they've been trying to make it work. And in the experiences in the big cities is different from what they have. But you can bring them all together on something like this.
Right. So I'm somebody who lives in Butler County, right? And I'm really passionate about, the fentanyl test strip bill. And I call my representative, or I call my senator, what exactly, from your perspective, how do I engage with this person? How do I effectively tell this person, I want you to support this really important piece of legislation?
Well, the first most important thing is to tell them what your address is. If you are a constituent, they'll perk up a little more, and at least they'll give you the time of day to listen. If you're one of 5,000 people sending them a tweet or a postcard in the mail, they won't pay near as much attention as somebody who has a chance to vote for them in their next election. So that might sound a little cynical, but that's use that to your advantage. Don't use it as a weapon. You never go in and try to threaten anybody. Just if your best things are your story and how that's affected, and making them understand that other people in the community are also having these experiences, and remembering that the elected official has the intention of trying to do the right thing. They don't understand. They all come from all kinds of different backgrounds. They don't understand your issues necessarily unless they've had that experience. So, be gentle with them, talk to them like 5-year-olds in a way, and never start conversations. I always tell my clients, never start any sentence with "as you know," because it's a false assumption. And explain to them what you're there for, and understand too that you're going to have 15 minutes with your legislator, and then when you get done, somebody else is sitting in the chair waiting for their 15 minutes to talk about that. There's roughly about 5,000 bills in a 2-year legislative session that get introduced. Most of them don't go anywhere. Only maybe 200 of them get signed by the governor. Apparently this year, 100 of them are vetoed, but that's a different matter. But most of them are because they're either not well drafted, or they can't get to a consensus, and legislators hate to do things that are hard and other people disagree with. So you have to be there with arguments, and also understand that other people have different views of what you're trying to get done. One of the things that we've had to overcome in educating legislators about the SSP, their syringe services bill, and the fentanyl strip, is how do you get beyond this notion of why are we encouraging people to use drugs?
Right.
Explain to them we're trying to keep them safe. They're already using the drugs. We're trying to keep them safe so they can maybe get some help if they choose to. And it's also, there's public health issues with the syringes too. They're exchanging diseases, besides the drugs that they're using. So make them understand that this is not, and also that we have to explain to people, particularly if they're familiar with Kensington, that's those injection sites are not what this is about either. This is trying to keep people safe.
Sure.
I would say, don't assume that we know what you're talking about. I guess I'm going to piggyback off of what you say. And I would also say, don't assume that we're in favor of it. Educate us about who you are, why this is important to you, and then back that up in multimedia. Don't just take that 5 minutes, send them an email, have a pamphlet or a packet. Make sure that you're giving us more information. I think repetition is helpful. And I guess, you know, you're talking about legislation, but don't be afraid to start small where you live, because legislation is one thing, but every county got, and the state got opiate money from this Purdue settlement. Is it Purdue or is it a different pharmaceutical company? I don't know, but we got millions of dollars coming into Northampton County. And I heard that we're going to use some of it on a billboard, which annoys the heck out of me. But go to your CSA, your county, your single county authority, and say, hey, we have a program that they're using effectively here. Could we try this on a small scale? And then build in some small success. So then you go back to your legislator and say, did you know the county's already doing that? And you know, build little baby steps. You know, there's money out there and there's money to be used. And sometimes you start something, sometimes it's those small people not small people, small programs that grow. And then everybody points at it and say, hey, this is working. Let's replicate that. We have a county commissioners association that meets 3 times a year, and we get presentations about that stuff. And I go there and I take notes, and I come home and say, why aren't we doing this? This is really successful. So don't be afraid to start something. Really, don't wait for the legislation to happen. Maybe that's a succinct way to say it.
Yeah, I think Alexandra, you had a comment.
I was just agreeing with Ted that I think the way that you speak to an elected is through your personal story. I think personal stories are really powerful, and you want to connect to their heart and try to sway them that way.
That's great. And from some of the comments that I'm getting in the chat, everybody, all the panelists are definitely inspiring some people. You know, I just want to, you know, reflect. Everybody was talking about, you know, things happen on a national level and a state level. And one of the things that is really important to PARN is that we are empowering all the communities across Pennsylvania, wanting every community to be involved, to be active participants, and supporting people in those efforts, because that's how really collective movements are started. And that's how, you know, long-lasting change is actually formed, you know, starting with those little moments. You know, that's one of the reasons why we are kicking off the Creating Communities campaign. There are so many avenues that people can pursue to create change in their communities, but I think often they just don't know what that is. They don't know how to access it, or they may not even know that it exists. So, you know, again, going back to just the theme of just, you know, educating people, because education equals, you know, empowerment. And, you know, I know we're down to like the last, you know, 10 minutes or so of the event, and I want to, you know, not only open it up to all the attendees to, you know, come on camera or off mute yourself, you know, any questions that you have, any comments, but for all of our panelists, because, you know, not everybody lives in the same area, would love to know, like, you know, what hopes do you have right now for your community?
I'll start that one off. I would love for my community, not just specifically the Southside, I'd love for my community to find its own voice. In a city of 75,000 people, maybe 6,000 people vote. So I would love for them to find their own voice and advocate for the things that they want. Otherwise, we're kind of flying blind here, and then we dictate what Bethlehem becomes, as opposed to the people of Bethlehem dictating what they would like to see. So I would love for my community to find its own voice and be confident coming out and saying this is the vision that we have for Bethlehem as the people who live here, and this is what we want to see.
That's awesome.
In Philadelphia, I would love to see people find stable footing. I think right now we're in the midst of a lot of crises that are intersecting, and people are struggling, and survival mode is very much on for so many Philadelphians. So reaching stable ground away from the cliff edge, and to do that hand in hand with good government and compassion.
Absolutely.
I would like to see us get back to talking about issues and not labeling sides. I've been able to work really effectively with my counterparts from the other party. We have a 5-4 split, and I feel like I could talk to any one of them about any issue. We may be nuanced different, but I just hear so much, like, I'm so grateful they don't go, well, you know, she's a Democrat. They don't ever, they show me utmost respect, and I give that to them. And so I hope for that for the constituents as well, you know, to not just label me, because I'm there to listen. Now, you know, that's the one thing you wish you knew that you didn't know. I now know that I represent everybody, whether you have a party affiliation or not. So everybody's my constituent. And so I want us to start getting back to some basic civility and respect, because that's the only way we're going to, and talk issues. Because when we talk issues, we are so much more closely aligned than when we start to label each other.
That's a great point, Lori. Thank you. How about you, Ted and Jordan?
Well, I actually couldn't agree more with what Lori said. Now, I long for the days when there were statesmen and there was people, you know, debating things and respecting other people's opinion, even if they didn't agree with them and didn't think that they were complete morons for having a, you know, a contrary view, just because they had a different life experience or they were representing a different constituency. You know, I liked it way better back in the day. You know, I hate to be the OG guy that says that stuff, but it's, you know, it's true for me. I don't like all the bickering that's been going on.
Because it doesn't advance legislation at all. We get stalemated, and then we end up doing nothing, or we have what's happened in Pennsylvania. Oh, you proposed it, I'm not even looking at it. And it's awful. That's not what we got elected to do.
And again, I come from a similar area to Rachel, but once you are elected to become a judge in Pennsylvania at any level, you can no longer be a political animal. You cannot participate in any kind of political chats. You cannot donate. You cannot fundraise. You cannot be seen at a political event. But people in my district and in Bethlehem and across Northampton County, the vast majority of those people, the vast majority of our constituents are good people, and they have opinions. And I know we've talked about how being civically engaged, no matter how big or small that proposition is, can be overwhelming. They don't know how to start. They don't know where to go. And they let the fact that they don't know where to go or what to do deter them from doing anything. So my hope would be that people from my area and in my community just give it a try. That is all I ask. I don't care what your passion is or what your issue is or how you want to be engaged, but just be engaged. There are so many opportunities. Every, you know, whether it's the environment, whether it's women's rights, whether it's homelessness, whether it's food scarcity, whether it's what religion, whatever it is that you care about, there is a group for that. Like, you know, they say there's an app for that. There's a group for that. We are so fortunate that we come from a place that, you know, there are so many opportunities and so many different groups and community cleanups and community volunteer events. We didn't really talk about volunteering tonight, but volunteering is huge. There are so many nonprofits everywhere that need so much help. And if you just open your eyes or you put a little bit of effort in and you look for an opportunity, there is an opportunity out there for you somewhere. And I just wish people would give it a try and realize that it's okay to be overwhelmed or intimidated or feel shy or nervous about trying, but also just do it. It's okay, you know, for me to be nervous to go to my local homeless shelter and try to volunteer and not know what to do or not know who's who or feel kind of uncomfortable. But it's okay for me to feel that way and do it anyway. Because once you just try one time, I think you will realize what an experience and what a benefit it is to you and everybody else. and he will probably go back and continue. And, you know, I have found that once you get involved, it's a snowball effect. You know, you go to one group, you have one nice chat with one person, you find out that that person does this other thing, then you also try that other thing. And before you know it, you know, you have kind of all these hats on and, you know, your hands in all these different pots. And I think that's great for people. The more engaged you can be, the better, because a lot of people have a lot to offer.
Those are great points. You know, would love to, you know, touch on the fact that you said like there really is no small or big when it comes to civic engagement, and even looking outside the scope of, you know, politics. You mentioned volunteering. You know, it was right before COVID that it was just a group of people in the Lehigh Valley who were tired of the good old boys funding system and grassroots recovery organizations not getting supported, not getting funding, and people wanted to support that. And none of us knew how to put on a walk. None of us knew how to put on a fundraiser. But we came together as a group and we figured it out. You know, in the first year, raised 12,000. In the second year, we raised 30,000. And, you know, and that all went back into supporting grassroots organizations. So, you know, is the recovery walk changing the world? No, but it did create this really cool, positive change, at least in the Lehigh Valley. And hopefully it inspires others to duplicate that in some form or another where they live. You know, change doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. It's incremental. And I know that regardless, you celebrate every win, and there really is no big or small win. Like a win is a win. Because if we don't celebrate the wins, we're going to lose our minds.
Right. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
The most important thing that anybody can do is do their research on the candidates, find people who are really aligned and really do believe in what you support, and get out and vote every single time. And vote local, because too many people just vote every 4 years when it's the presidency, and they forget to vote for those school board members and to vote for those county and city and borough legislators. They're the people that are going to pass ordinances about whether you could have a rehab in town or not, or if you could have a health center next to it or near a school zone. Like, they're the people that make a difference. And too many of us have lost ground because no one's been paying attention. So please, you know, I'm a super voter. I'm a nut. I voted since I'm little, and I couldn't wait till I was 18 and I could do it the first time. And my candidate lost. It was Jimmy Carter. And now look where he is. Superhero brain cancer. Yes. So there you go. So just vote. I don't care if you vote for me, just vote.
Thank you. All right. Well, we are winding down to the end. I always want to be respectful of people's time. I know it's late. We all have very busy lives. So I do, just in case if there are any attendees who have any final questions or any final comments, I'd like to give you that space right now. All right, well then I would love to close out with if we have any final comments from all of our, you know, amazing panelists tonight. Any parting words for everybody?
Thank you all for being here. Civic engagement right here, so thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for everybody for, you know, getting that first step, and hopefully you'll take something back from this and that you can carry back.
And thank you guys for hosting and allowing us to participate in this forum and allowing for the questions and the casual discussion. You know, it's hard a lot of times when we are asked to participate in something like this. It's a very formal, very rehearsed, very political thing. This was a nice refresher, I think, for me.
Good.
Yep, ditto on what everyone said. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for participants showing up, and thank you for panelists. It just, everyone involved. This is part of the work. And so it's good to participate in a loving, accepting environment and to keep up the fight outside of these spaces.
Yes, thanks to everybody for being here, for being part of it, for hosting. And don't be afraid to reach out to us after the event. If you are thinking about running, if you have questions, if you need support in your own neighborhoods, just let us know. Or if you're not from Northampton County and need a connection in another county or another city, let us know.
I just wanted to say thank you all so much. This was really, really cool experience. I feel like I have so much to learn when it comes to all of this and this part of the world that I am in. And I learned a lot and I appreciate you all. And Alex, Unity Recovery says hi, and we really hope that you run again because we need you. So I just wanted to say that.
All right. Well, again, thank you to not only everybody attended, but like, thank you so much to all the panelists. I really appreciate everybody taking, this hour and a half out of their time. And I'm hoping that we can do more events like this in the future. And Tom, I will give you the last minute if you keep it to a minute.
Me?
You put your hand up, right?
Well, I can't put my hand up. I'm looking forward to getting involved in Northampton County as much as possible as a member of the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board. That was my question about tips to get that board up and running. And that's been my passion for the last month or so, is to dig in locally. So look out, Lori.
Tom, for a piece of advice on that, one of my side passions is being a soccer coach. And in order to be a good coach, sometimes you have to build your team. So if you're having trouble bringing people people are not choosing to participate in the board, go scout them out, go find people who show up to different boards and see if you can pull them onto yours.
Yeah, I'm in the process of doing that. I am a recruiter right now.
Tom, did you apply or are you considering?
I'm a member.
Oh, good.
Right. And right now we're sitting at below quorum. And I have two candidates that I want to bring forward. Plan on coming to a council meeting tomorrow night. And then our meeting on Friday, I've asked those two people that I'm proposing to sit in. I've already talked to Melissa and I've talked to Kathy, and we know what we need to do to get them on the board. And my goal is to get that board up and running and be functional and an asset to the county.
We will speak tomorrow night.
That would be awesome.
I will be there.
All right, cool.
There we go. One event and bam, we already made that civic engagement connection. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Our panelists, thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And I hope that retrograde is very gentle with everybody. And if it's not, just blame retrograde. Okay.
Jordan, do you want to talk about our next?
Before you forget, thank you for reminding me. Our next panel event is going to be September 28th. That is our Organizing 101. We're also going to have a great lineup of panelists. So if you haven't registered, please do so. And I hope to see some of your faces there as well. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank
See
you.
y'all.
Bye.